So what I've got here in my hands is the brand new Insta360 X3. And I have to say, I'm pretty excited to unbox and try this camera out. The way I like to describe 360 cameras is it's like having an entire film crew along with you. The magic of the 360 camera is you can pretty much have that camera pointing in any direction, and then later on when you're editing, that's where the magic happens. There's a lot of 360 cameras out there, but Insta360 does accessories and software really well. But for now, let's get started with the unboxing of the Insta360 X3. All right, so we're gonna lift up the lid here. And inside, it's pretty simple. We've got the camera right here, and down under here is gonna be the accessories. So one big notable design change on the Insta360 X3 is this big touchscreen. The One X2 had that tiny circular screen on it, but this is perhaps the biggest, most significant improvement on the X3, is it's about 2.2 inches, and it's touchscreen. It's much larger, which makes it a lot easier for controlling the menu options on here. Those tiny screens are very difficult to use to maneuver around options. These larger screens are typically much better. So until I try it out, I can't say for sure, but that at least is a good initial improvement. Gonna take off all of our stickers here. So the other thing that Insta360 does well is on the box here, they've got the QR code that you can swipe to get the app. And of course, that's gonna prompt you to install the firmware update right off the bat. Firmware updates are very important. That's gonna ensure this has the latest updates to run the best and to have the latest and greatest features that Insta360 offers for the camera. So inside here, we have USB to USB-C charging cable. So there is no charging brick with this. If you want to recharge the battery in here, you do have to hook it up to a computer to charge, or you would need to buy the battery charger that Insta360 sells, which, by the way, it's definitely worth having at least one extra battery for this camera. The battery time on this is supposed to be about an hour, but I recommend having at least one extra. And the battery charger from Insta360, it can charge 3 batteries at a time. So if you're gonna use this camera a lot, it's probably worth investing in at least one extra battery as well as that battery charger, because that battery charger will charge it a lot faster than hooking it to a computer will. We've also got a protective case in here, which the protective cases are particularly important with the 360 cameras because the lenses here where they stick out, it could be pretty easy to damage those without meaning to. These lenses can't take as much of a beating as other lenses on some cameras, and these ones are also not replaceable on here. So if you damage these lenses, you would have to either buy a new camera or send it to Insta360 for repair. And we've also got a lens cleaning cloth in here. That's handy to have for these lenses. You don't want to scratch them. That could definitely mess with your footage. And there's some nice stickers in here as well, in case you want stickers. And there's also a quick start guide. All right, so let's get this camera powered on, and I'm sure it's gonna prompt me for a firmware update, so we're gonna do that first thing. So let's take a look at this setup process here. I'm gonna select English and click Next. It's gonna prompt me to download the app, which I have already done. So we're gonna go through the activation process on my phone here. So I've already got the Insta360 app installed, and it has detected the device, so we're gonna click Connect. And it's going to connect via Bluetooth. So it's asking me to confirm on the camera screen. So the camera now says connect to app. I click the check mark, and it's going to proceed to connect here. And we're going to join the Wi-Fi network. All right, it's going to tell us new firmware is found here. This initial firmware update looks very important. There's a lot of different features and support that it mentions there. So we definitely want to make sure to update that. So I'm going to click Start to Download. And it's going to go through the download new firmware stages. The download can take a pretty good amount of time sometimes. A lot of times that initial firmware is pretty large in size. So we're gonna let this finish downloading. Our firmware update is inching a little closer to being finished. We're at about 61% right now. All right, we are now at about 94% done. I just want to show you here what this does next as it pushes the firmware to the camera. So now it's uploading the firmware file to the camera. And it is important that you have a micro SD card in the camera, at least initially here for this first firmware update. If you don't have a micro SD card in the camera, it will not work. It will fail. And then on the camera right now, it'll tell you that the firmware is being upgraded. The camera will automatically restart when it's finished. And this upload process can also take a little bit. And when it gets to the 50% right here, it then switches over and starts doing the firmware update. So then the camera screen goes dark and the blue light will flash at a different frequency at the bottom of the screen. And it tells you right here the touchscreen will be off and the indicator light will be blue, and it's going to last about 1 minute, and then the camera will automatically restart. So I like it how clear Insta360 is with what to expect from the process. Props to them for that. All right, update successful. We're going to click here where it says, please reconnect the camera. We're going to click join. And that was the sound of the camera rebooting. All right, and it's successfully connected. So we're going to click activation here at the bottom. And it'll give you the register now option to register to get 3 extra months of warranty. I'm going to click go to settings to register later. And at that point, we should be all set now. Other than the larger touchscreen on this camera, some other notable features are the cable door here is now an actual door. It's not that flimsy piece that would fall off and be hard to reattach. It's an actual door. So much better. Props to Insta360 for that redesign. And then we've got the battery right here. And the battery does detach. Squeeze these in, it comes out. Battery's pretty sizable, and the battery is 1800 milliamps, which is a pretty good charge for this type of camera. And we've of course got the thumb screw mount here on the bottom. And on the side, we have the power button and the Q button, which allows you to quickly change modes. And of course, inside the battery slot is the micro SD card slot right here along the side. When you're inserting the battery or opening or closing any of these doors, it's important to make sure there's no red showing. If you're going to use it underwater, that's really important because this camera will not be waterproof if there's any red showing. Water can easily get inside, but as long as you don't see red and everything's sealed here, you should be good with the waterproofing. Now this camera does also have built-in microphones that surround this, and it's supposed to pick up sound on all sides. As with any action camera, the sound that comes out of this, I don't expect a lot from that. Insta360 does sell a mic adapter where you can attach an external mic, and that's probably what I would use if I wanted good quality sound out of this. Especially if it's windy conditions or you're near an ocean, something like that. The sound picked up on here is not going to be the best. All right, so instead of talking more about this camera, I'm going to charge it up and then I'm going to get outside on an adventure and do some filming with this. Because what I want to show you is I want to give you a feel for the quality of the video from this. And I also want to give you a sampling of some of the possibilities of what you can do with this camera. And as I said earlier, one of the neat things about a 360-degree camera is you can essentially capture and reframe footage that looks like you had an entire camera crew along in your adventure. And that's where 360 cameras really shine. I don't view these as an either or with a normal action camera. A normal action camera has its place with certain types of filming settings where this camera does not meet those needs, but this camera meets those needs in ways that those other cameras do not as well. So each camera has its unique place. So I wouldn't say this camera replaces another action camera, but the X3 is certainly worth considering as one of the best, if not the best, 360-degree cameras out there right now. So I'm going to charge this up, I'm going to get outside, and I'm going to film a bunch of footage, and I'm going to put together a couple minutes of that so you can see what this camera is capable of. So there you go. There's a couple minutes of footage from the brand new Insta360 X3. Now I'm going to be sharing a lot more content with you from this camera, including the best settings that I used, how I did some of these shots, and how I reframed some of these shots in the Insta360 software. That way, if you're interested in picking up an X3, you'll know exactly how to do what I did with it. If you're interested in checking this camera out, or any of the host of accessories that Insta360 offers for this camera and their other cameras, I've linked to this camera as well as the accessories in the description below.